That leads me to something. So, for example, if one of your local clients here, we got into a Halliburton bond paying 7.6% in US dollar terms.
Yeah.
Now, if you're to compare an investment like an A-rated corporate bond paying 7.6% in US dollar terms compared to, say, a government bond in Uganda, how would you say the risk compares? Would you say the US dollar bond linked to an A-rated company is much safer than, for example, most of the government bonds out there?
That's a very good question. Again, I should say, importantly, how I look at it is the A-rated bonds, if they're being issued by A-rated companies, for example, the S&P 500 companies, the top 500 companies in America, these companies are strong. Mm-hmm. They have big balance sheets. Some of them have even bigger balance sheets than some of the African companies.
Yes.
So the thing is, sorry, not African companies, African governments.
Yes. Yes.
So you'll find that some of these companies that are issuing these bonds, it's as good as a government bond, but even better. Mm-hmm. You've spoken about Halliburton. Halliburton has been around from 1896, if I'm not right. It's either 1896 or 1912, one of the 2 years. I'll cross-check again. But this is a company that has run for over 100 years. They're in the oil fields business, and importantly, they've issued a couple of bonds, and their bonds are all A-rated. Mm-hmm. So meaning such a company, the chance of their bond defaulting is lower than some of the African government bonds. Because if, for example, Kenya has issued a couple of bonds, and we know that they have a stress happening on some of their Euro bonds. They're having some issues there. But on their local currency bonds, they're not having issues. So if you've basically invested on let's say Halliburton, which is an American-based company, and the Kenyan Euro bond, there's a higher chance for the Kenyan bond to default. There's a higher chance compared to Halliburton. Mm. However, if you're to also look at it on the other way of Kenya shillings bonds, or Uganda shillings bonds, or any other local currency bond, now there's a lower chance of default on those ones. Basically, for the local currency bonds, the default rate is very low. Actually, I haven't seen any default yet in Africa on local currency, but I've seen mainly on the USD denominated bonds, yeah.
Yeah, because ultimately governments don't need to default in local currency around the world because they can just push up inflation, right? And they can just indirectly have a partial default, let's say.
Yes.
Even the Zimbabwean government didn't default on their bonds, but inflation was like a trillion% or whatever, like Venezuela. So